Most experienced collaborators will tell you that effective communication is essential to the success of a collaborative research project. While it takes a long time and lots of experience to perfect your communication skills, there are some things you can bear in mind to improve your communication with others. In this short presentation, we'll look at just a few aspects of communication that might help you to better plan communication with your collaborators. If we think about communication in a very simple way, firstly, we have an idea or some information that we want to express, and secondly, we encode this and communicate it either verbally or in writing. The message is then received by another person who in turn interprets it. In any communication, there is scope for this information or the message to get corrupted in any of these four stages. Here are some examples, in no particular order, of the issues or circumstances that could get in the way or corrupt the message that you're communicating, particularly in a research context. In a research collaboration, there are some obvious issues that could affect the way you encode your message, or the way it's transmitted, or how your collaborator interprets the message. Your role as the project lead is to predict or to notice these things and to take measures to prevent or reduce the level of misinterpretation. Take a moment to think about times in which some of these issues may have affected your communication within your collaborations. Can you think about how you can change the method of communication to take account of some of these issues? One thing that can greatly affect communication within a team is the different individuals' preferences for extroversion or introversion. It's likely that your research team will have some individuals who have more of a preference for introversion and some that are more extrovert. They both will have valuable contributions to make to the work of the project, but are likely to communicate in different ways. If we consider extroverts, people with this preference get their energy and enthusiasm from the outer world, for example, other people and experiences. They will want to talk through problems with others and to discuss issues wherever possible. They are more likely to have a breadth of interests and in communications will tend to speak first and reflect later, so their contributions to discussions may not necessarily be their final or their most thoroughly thought through on the topic. Conversely, some people have more of a tendency towards introversion. Being energised by their inner thoughts and reflections, they would rather think through a problem and reflect before speaking about their thoughts and ideas. They'll be reluctant to put ideas forward without a chance to reflect. Introverts tend to learn best by practicing and reflecting and are more likely to have a depth of interests rather than a breadth of interests and activities. As a project leader, it's useful to recognise and understand these preferences, as it can help you to use different methods of working and communication to make the most of meetings and to get the best from your team. For example, for extroverts, allow plenty of interaction and activities. Extroverts can make more sense of problems if they're given a chance to discuss them. You could do this through a variety of different methods. In contrast, to account for those with an introversion preference, you should also ensure that some work allows time for solitude and concentration. If you want the best ideas from people with an introversion preference, communicate in writing and give time to reflect on agenda items in advance of meetings. The final topic we'll consider in this presentation is listening. Clearly an important aspect of communication. It's crucial as a PI or a project lead that you're effectively listening to your colleagues. Start to notice how effective your listening is in meetings and interactions. There is a theory that there are 3 levels of listening. The first is where we tend to spend most of our time when conversing. We focus mainly on ourselves, and when someone else is talking, we're thinking mostly about our own views on the topic, what this means for us, and why it's important, and how we can make use of the information or contribute to the discussion. What ideas or advice can we give? The next level involves us focusing much more on what the other person is saying. Instead of thinking of ourselves, we're focusing on what that person really thinks, understanding and empathising with their perspective, and being very curious about what they mean and what they might want. The final level requires us to notice more than what we are just hearing. What is the other person not saying, for example, and what can we determine from their tone of voice or their body language? Levels 2 and 3 take much more concentration and energy than level 1, and so we tend to lapse into level 1 listening most of the time. But this is not very useful when we're trying to understand other perspectives and to develop productive relationships. Level 1 listening can frustrate other people. They feel they're not properly being understood or listened to. And as a research leader, your role is to facilitate and encourage the work of others, not necessarily to do the work yourself. So, next time you're in a meeting, notice how much of the talking you're doing and how much people hear of your opinions rather than the other way round. To be an effective listener, you should be in level 2 or 3 and not doing all of the talking. You should be curious, asking questions to understand your colleagues and to encourage and gather their contributions. People will feel much more motivated and confident if they feel they're being properly listened to. Finally, make a commitment to really notice the issues, circumstances and situations where communication may be ineffective. Consult with your colleagues about the best ways to improve the communication.